In the depths of a bitter Montana autumn, a story unfolded that would challenge everything Emma Davidson thought she knew about hope, healing, and the unspoken bonds between humans and animals. As dawn broke over Pine Valley Ranch, no one could have predicted how a single desperate plea from an ailing Mustang would reveal a truth that had been hidden in the shadows of her grandfather's old barn. This is a tale that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about animal instincts and the power of compassion. The morning mist clung to the ground like a ghostly blanket as Emma made her way across the frost-covered field. The sound of desperate whinnying pierced the dawn silence, drawing her attention to a dark figure near the weathered red barn. There, illuminated by the first rays of sunrise, stood a magnificent but clearly distressed Mustang, his coat dulled by illness and his proud frame weakened by whatever affliction plagued him. This wasn't just any wild horse. This was Thunder, the local legend known for his untameable spirit and striking dark brown coat. But today, something was different. Something was wrong. Thunder's hooves pawed at the ground before the barn's entrance, his actions urgent and deliberate. His once proud head hung low, yet his eyes burned with an intensity that stopped Emma in her tracks. In all her years working with horses, first as a veterinary assistant and now as the owner of her grandfather's ranch, she had never seen such desperate determination in an animal's eyes. The mighty Mustang, known for avoiding human contact, was literally begging to enter the barn. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of pine and approaching snow as Emma cautiously approached. Thunder's behavior defied everything she knew about wild horses, especially one with his reputation. His flanks heaved with labored breathing, and even from a distance, she could see the tremors running through his powerful frame. But it was his eyes that truly caught her attention. They weren't focused on her, but rather fixed intently on the barn door, as if something inside was calling to him. As Emma drew closer, she noticed the subtle signs of illness that marked Thunder's magnificent frame. His coat, once the color of rich coffee beans, had lost its luster. Patches of hair seemed uneven, and his muscles, while still powerful, showed signs of recent weight loss. Yet despite his weakened state, there was an urgency in his movements that spoke of something beyond mere shelter-seeking. He wasn't just looking for refuge from the cold, he was trying to tell her something. Dr. James Miller's truck rumbled up the gravel driveway, responding to Emma's early morning call. The veteran veterinarian had known Thunder since the horse first appeared in the valley 3 years ago. As he stepped out of his vehicle, his weathered face creased with concern. "Never seen him this close to the buildings," he muttered, grabbing his medical bag. Something's definitely got him spooked or desperate. The next few moments would be forever etched in Emma's memory. As she and Dr. Miller carefully approached, Thunder's behavior became even more peculiar. Instead of shying away, he moved closer to them, then back to the barn door, as if trying to lead them. His actions were deliberate, almost human-like in their intention. Emma felt a chill run down her spine that had nothing to do with the morning. Cold. With trembling hands, Emma reached for the barn door. Thunder's whinnying grew more insistent, his dark eyes fixed on her movements. The old wooden door creaked open, and what they discovered inside would change everything. There, in the shadows of the musty barn, lay another horse, a mare barely visible in the dim light, clearly in distress. But it wasn't just any mare. It was Hope, a pregnant rescue horse that had disappeared from a neighboring ranch 2 weeks ago. The reality of the situation struck Emma like a physical blow. Thunder, this wild and untamable spirit, had somehow known. Despite his own illness, he had found his way here, not seeking help for himself, but leading them to another in greater need. The mare was in labor, but something was wrong. Her breathing was shallow, her movements weak and uncoordinated. Dr. Miller sprang into action, his years of experience taking over. "Emma, I need warm water and clean towels, now." His voice carried the urgency of the situation. As Emma rushed to gather supplies, she couldn't help but marvel at Thunder, who had now positioned himself near the barn entrance, standing guard like a sentinel. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. The mare's labor was difficult, complicated by her weakened state and poor conditions. Through it all, Thunder remained nearby, his own illness seemingly forgotten in his vigil. His presence seemed to calm the mare, his occasional soft nickering like words of encouragement. As the sun climbed higher in the Montana sky, their efforts were rewarded with the sound of new life. A foal, small but healthy, took its first breaths in the old barn. Hope, true to her name, had pulled through, though she remained weak. Dr. Miller administered antibiotics and fluids to both Mother and Thunder, whose own condition began to stabilize once he knew the mare and foal were safe. The story could have ended there, but nature had one more surprise in store. As Emma watched Thunder over the following days, she witnessed something remarkable. The wild Mustang, once known for his solitary nature, refused to leave the vicinity of the barn. He stood watch over the mare and foal, accepting Emma's care with surprising gentleness. His own illness, which Dr. Miller diagnosed as a severe respiratory infection, began to improve under treatment. Word spread through the valley about the Mustang who had sacrificed his freedom to save another. Local news outlets picked up the story, and soon Pine Valley Ranch became known as the place where a wild horse had shown more humanity than many humans. Emma found herself fielding calls from reporters and wildlife photographers, all eager to document this extraordinary tale of animal altruism. But for Emma, the real story wasn't in the headlines or the viral social media posts. It was in the quiet moments at dawn, when she would find Thunder still standing guard, his proud head held high once again as his strength returned. It was in the way he gradually allowed her to approach, no longer the untouchable wild spirit, but a partner in caring for the mare and foal. As autumn deepened into winter, Pine Valley Ranch underwent its own transformation. Emma, inspired by Thunder's actions, began converting part of the property into a sanctuary for injured wild horses. The old barn, once a simple shelter, became a symbol of hope and healing. Dr. Miller helped design proper medical facilities, and together they created a place where other horses could find the same safety that Thunder had sought that fateful morning. Thunder's story teaches us that sometimes the most extraordinary acts of courage come from the most unexpected sources. His actions remind us that compassion knows no boundaries, and that the capacity for empathy exists deep within all living beings. This magnificent Mustang, who overcame his own illness and natural instincts to save another, shows us that true strength lies not in remaining wild and free, but in choosing to help others, even at great personal cost. Today, Thunder remains at Pine Valley Ranch, no longer as a patient or a wild thing to be tamed, but as a symbol of everything possible. When we open our hearts to the unspoken wisdom of nature, the barn that once housed his desperate plea has become a sanctuary where other animals find healing, and where people come to learn about the profound connections possible between humans and horses. If this story has touched your heart, remember that there are countless other animals out there waiting for someone to hear their silent pleas. Consider supporting your local animal sanctuaries and rescue organizations. Subscribe to stay updated on more inspiring stories of hope, healing, and the extraordinary bonds between humans and animals. Together, we can create more sanctuaries where stories like Thunder's can unfold, proving that sometimes the most powerful messages come not in words, but in the actions of those we least expect to teach us about compassion. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell to never miss another heartwarming story of animal courage and human kindness. Share this story with someone who needs a reminder that hope can be found in the most unexpected places, and that sometimes our greatest teachers come with 4 legs and a wild heart. The winter wind howled through the gaps in the old barn's weathered boards, carrying with it the promise of the season's first serious snowstorm. Emma Davidson stood at the entrance, her breath visible in the crisp morning air as she watched. Thunder and hope interact in the dim light, filtering through the dusty windows. The transformation of Pine Valley Ranch over the past few weeks had been nothing short of miraculous, but the work was far from over. The historic red barn, a testament to her grandfather's legacy, had begun to show its age more prominently as they converted it into a proper sanctuary. The wooden beams overhead creaked with every strong gust, and the metal roof panels rattled ominously. Emma knew they needed to reinforce the structure before the heavy Montana snows arrived, but resources were already stretched thin with caring for their unexpected residents. Dr. Miller's pickup truck crunched over the frozen gravel as he arrived. For his daily check on the horses, his visits had become a morning ritual, though they both knew Hope was well on her way to recovery. The real reason for his continued presence was Thunder. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story, whose case had begun to puzzle even the experienced veterinarian. The mighty Mustang's respiratory infection had improved under treatment, but there was something else about his behavior that defied conventional understanding. "Morning, Emma," Dr. Miller called out, his voice carrying over the wind as he retrieved his medical bag from the passenger seat. "How are our patients today?" His weathered face bore the signs of another early start, but his eyes sparkled with the same curiosity that had drawn him to veterinary medicine decades ago. Emma had come to rely on those eyes, which seemed to see beyond the surface of their unusual situation. Inside the barn, Thunder stood near Hope's stall, his posture relaxed but vigilant. The foal, whom they'd named Spirit, dozed peacefully in the fresh straw beside his mother. The scene appeared perfectly ordinary, yet there was nothing ordinary about a wild Mustang choosing to remain in captivity, especially one with Thunder's reputation for avoiding human contact. Emma had spent countless hours observing him, trying to understand the complexity of his decision to stay. As Dr. Miller approached with his stethoscope, Thunder remained still, allowing the examination without the sedation they'd initially required. His dark eyes, once filled with fever and desperation, now held a different kind of intensity. Emma noticed how he tracked every movement around Hope's stall, his ears constantly swiveling to catch any sound that might signal danger to the mare and foal. "His breathing has improved significantly," Dr. Miller noted, moving the stethoscope across Thunder's broad chest. "But I'm more intrigued by these behavioral changes. In all my years of practice, I've never seen anything quite like this." He stepped back, scratching his chin thoughtfully. "It's as if he's appointed himself their guardian." Emma leaned against a support beam, watching as Thunder nickered softly to Spirit, who had awakened and wobbled to his feet. The foal's coat gleamed in the weak winter light, a perfect blend of his mother's pale coloring and what Emma imagined must have been a darker sire. She couldn't help but wonder about the circumstances that had brought Hope to their barn that fateful morning, and how Thunder had known she needed help. The sound of approaching vehicles drew their attention. Through the barn's weather-worn boards, Emma could make out several cars making their way up the long driveway. More visitors, no doubt drawn by the story that had captured hearts across the region. The local newspaper's article about Thunder's remarkable act of compassion had gone viral, bringing both welcome support and unwanted attention to Pine Valley Ranch. "I'll handle them," Dr. Miller offered, noting Emma's exhaustion. "You focus on the morning feed." He understood her reluctance to become a public figure, even as their story continued to spread. The quiet life she'd envisioned when inheriting her grandfather's ranch had transformed into something far more complex. As the veterinarian made his way outside, Emma began the morning feeding routine. The familiar task gave her time to reflect on the changes taking place within the sanctuary. Thunder's presence had catalyzed something unexpected, drawing other local ranchers to their cause. Feed donations had begun arriving daily, and volunteers appeared regularly, offering to help with repairs and maintenance. The barn's interior, once sparse and utilitarian, now hummed with purpose. New stall partitions lined one wall, ready to accommodate more rescued horses. The ancient hayloft above had been reinforced, its wooden floor replaced with sturdy planks that no longer creaked with every footstep. Even the old tack room had found new life as a medical supply station, its shelves stocked with donations from sympathetic veterinary clinics. Emma measured out Thunder's morning grain, adding the supplements Dr. Miller had prescribed. The Mustang's appetite had returned with vigor, though he always waited to eat until Hope and Spirit had received their portions. This simple act of deference never failed to amaze Emma, challenging everything she thought she knew about wild horse behavior. Outside, she could hear Dr. Miller explaining their work to the visitors. His voice carried authority and passion, describing their vision for Pine Valley Ranch's future as a sanctuary for injured and displaced wild horses. The project had grown beyond anything Emma had imagined when she'd first opened the barn door to discover Hope in distress. As she distributed hay between the stalls, Emma's thoughts drifted to her grandfather. He had always claimed there was something special about this valley, something that drew animals in need of healing. She'd dismissed his words as the romantic notions of an old rancher, but now she wondered if he'd understood something she was only beginning to grasp. The morning light strengthened, filling the barn with a warm glow that belied the winter chill outside. Thunder moved to the barn's entrance, his silhouette framed by the doorway as he surveyed the landscape beyond. His posture spoke of strength regained, yet he made no attempt to leave, no move to return to the freedom of the wild that had defined his existence for so long. Dr. Miller returned, stamping snow from his boots. "They're good people," he said, referring to the visitors. "Brought more supplies and offered to help with the roof repairs." He paused, watching Thunder's vigilant stance. "We're going to need it, especially if more cases start finding their way here." Emma nodded, understanding the implications. Word had spread through the local horse community about Pine Valley Ranch's transformation. Other ranchers had begun calling, asking if they could transfer horses in need of rehabilitation. The sanctuary was evolving organically, driven by Thunder's example of compassion and the community's response to his story. As if sensing their discussion, Thunder turned from his post, moving back to check on Hope and Spirit. The mare greeted him with a soft nicker, her recovery evident in the brightness of her eyes and the glossy sheen returning to her coat. Spirit tottered around his mother's legs, his confidence growing daily under the watchful gaze of both his mother and his unlikely guardian. The sound of hammering echoed from above as volunteers began work on the roof, their presence a testament to the way Thunder's story had touched the community. Emma watched as the Mustang's ears tracked the noise, his body tense until he determined the sounds posed no threat to his charges. Even after weeks of human activity around the barn, his protective instincts remained sharp. Dr. Miller began his examination of Hope and Spirit, his movements deliberate and gentle. "The foal's development is right on track," he reported, his experienced hands checking Spirit's legs and joints. "And Hope's strength improves daily. Soon they'll be ready for more activity outside the barn." The prospect of moving the horses outside raised new questions about Thunder's behavior. Would he continue his vigilant guard once Hope and Spirit had more freedom of movement? Would the call of the wild finally overcome his self-imposed responsibility? Emma had seen enough of his dedication to suspect that his commitment ran deeper than mere instinct. The day progressed with a steady stream of activity. Volunteers came and went, bringing supplies and offering help. Local children pressed their faces against the barn's windows, hoping to catch a glimpse of the famous wild horse who had chosen captivity to help others. Through it all, Thunder maintained his quiet dignity, accepting the attention with a stoicism that seemed at odds with his former reputation. As afternoon shadows lengthened across the barn floor, Emma received an unexpected visitor. Sarah Martinez, the owner of the neighboring ranch from which Hope had disappeared, arrived with tears in her eyes and gratitude in her voice. The story of Thunder's intervention had finally reached her ears, and she had come to see for herself the miracle that had saved her beloved mare. "I searched everywhere," Sarah explained, her voice thick with emotion as she watched Hope nuzzle Spirit. "When she disappeared that night, I feared the worst. The idea that a wild horse would find her and lead help to her." She trailed off, overwhelmed by the improbability of it all. Thunder regarded Sarah with interest as she approached Hope's stall, his posture alert, but not aggressive. Emma marveled at his ability to discern friend from foe, to understand nuances that seemed beyond natural horse behavior. As Sarah shared the story of Hope's life before her disappearance, another piece of the puzzle fell into place. Hope, it turned out, had been rescued from the same region where Thunder roamed. Sarah's description of the roundup that had brought Hope to her ranch sparked a theory in Emma's mind. Perhaps Thunder and Hope had known each other in the wild, their paths crossing in the vast expanses of Montana's backcountry. It would explain his extraordinary effort to help her, though it made his sacrifice no less remarkable. The day wound down with the setting sun, painting the barn's interior in shades of gold and amber. The roof repairs were complete, at least temporarily, and the volunteers had departed with promises to return. Emma made her final rounds, checking water buckets and feed levels, her movements automatic after weeks of the same routine. Thunder stood in his usual evening spot, positioned where he could see both the barn entrance and Hope's stall. His dark coat gleamed with health, the result of regular grooming and proper nutrition. Yet it was his eyes that showed the most profound change. No longer wild with fever and desperation, they held a serene awareness that spoke of conscious choice rather than mere circumstance. As Emma prepared to close up for the night, she paused to reflect on the transformation taking place within these old barn walls. What had begun as a simple act of compassion by a wild horse had sparked a movement, drawing people together in ways she never expected. Pine Valley Ranch was becoming more than a sanctuary for horses. It was becoming a testament to the profound connections possible between humans and animals. The wind had died down, leaving behind a pristine silence broken only by the soft sounds of horses settling in for the night. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new visitors, and perhaps new animals in need of help. But for now, in the peaceful twilight of a Montana winter evening, Emma found herself grateful for the mysterious ways life had of turning desperate situations into opportunities for healing and growth. Outside, the first stars appeared in the darkening sky, their light reflecting off the fresh snow that blanketed the valley. Inside the barn, Thunder maintained his vigil, a wild spirit who had chosen to become something more, a guardian, a healer, and a bridge between two worlds. His story was far from over, but already it had changed countless lives, human and animal alike, proving that sometimes the greatest acts of courage come from following one's heart, even when it leads down unexpected paths. Dawn painted the Montana sky in shades of lavender and gold as Emma made her way through the fresh powder toward the barn. The overnight snowfall had transformed Pine Valley Ranch into a winter wonderland, the pristine white blanket broken only by the tracks of local wildlife and the occasional volunteers' footprints. A peculiar sound caught her attention, Thunder's distinctive whinny, but with an urgency she hadn't heard since that first fateful morning. The massive barn doors, freshly repaired and weatherproofed, swung open with ease despite the cold. Inside, the scene that greeted Emma made her heart skip a beat. Thunder stood at attention, his ears pricked forward, focusing intently on Spirit, who had somehow managed to squeeze through a gap in his stall's fencing. The foal, growing stronger and more adventurous by the day, had wedged himself into a narrow space between two storage bins. Hope watched anxiously from her stall, her maternal instincts evident in her restless movements. But it was Thunder's response that caught Emma's attention. The mighty Mustang hadn't panicked or tried to intervene directly. Instead, he maintained a calm presence, positioning himself where Spirit could see him while waiting for human assistance. This level of trust and cooperation from a formerly wild horse still amazed Emma, even after weeks of witnessing his extraordinary behavior. Dr. Miller's arrival coincided with Emma's careful extraction of the adventurous foal. The veterinarian's weathered face crinkled with amusement as Spirit, once freed, pranced back to his mother as if nothing had happened. "That little one's going to keep us on our toes," he remarked, setting down his medical bag. "Reminds me of another spirited horse I know." His knowing glance toward Thunder spoke volumes. The morning's excitement gave way to routine examinations, but there was nothing routine about the way Thunder had evolved. His own recovery had progressed remarkably, his respiratory infection all but cleared. Yet his dedication to hope and Spirit remained unwavering, his behavior becoming more refined and purposeful with each passing day. He no longer simply stood guard. He actively participated in their care, alerting Emma to any changes or concerns with an intelligence that defied conventional understanding. As Dr. Miller completed his rounds, a new sound drew their attention, the rumble of approaching vehicles. Through the barn's frost-covered windows, Emma spotted several horse trailers making their way up the snow-covered drive. The sanctuary's reputation had spread faster than she'd anticipated, and today marked the arrival of their first official rescue cases since Thunder's remarkable intervention. The logistics of expanding their operation had kept Emma awake many nights. The barn, while spacious, would need further modifications to accommodate more horses. The arrival of 3 new rescues would test not only their facilities, but also Thunder's adaptation to a changing environment. How would the former wild stallion react to new horses entering his domain? The answer came sooner than expected. As the rescue horses were carefully led into the barn, Thunder's behavior displayed a new dimension of his evolving nature. He remained alert but calm, watching the proceedings with intelligent interest. When one of the new arrivals, a severely undernourished mare, showed signs of distress, Thunder's soft nickering seemed to have a calming effect that rippled through the barn. The new mare, whom the rescue team had named Luna, bore the visible signs of neglect, ribs prominent beneath a dull coat, eyes wary from mistreatment. As she was settled into a prepared stall, Thunder's attention focused on her with the same intensity he had shown toward Hope in those early days. Emma and Dr. Miller exchanged glances, recognizing the pattern emerging. "Remarkable," Dr. Miller murmured, documenting Luna's condition. "He seems to understand exactly what we are trying to accomplish." Here, the veterinarian's initial skepticism about Thunder's behavior had long since given way to professional fascination. "It's as if he's appointed himself ambassador for the sanctuary." Emma watched as Thunder maintained his vigil, dividing his attention between his original charges and the newcomers. His presence seemed to create a sense of security that helped the rescue horses settle more quickly than expected. The barn's atmosphere, despite the addition of new animals, remained surprisingly calm and ordered. The winter day progressed with a flurry of activity as volunteers helped establish routines for the new arrivals. Local ranchers who had heard about the sanctuary's expansion arrived with donations of hay and supplies, their trucks creating temporary trails in the fresh snow. Emma found herself constantly amazed by the community's response to their growing mission. By late afternoon, the barn had transformed into a properly functioning rescue facility. Each stall was occupied, water buckets were filled, and fresh hay filled the mangers. The sound of contented horses munching their feed filled the space, punctuated by the occasional soft nicker. Through it all, Thunder maintained his self-appointed rounds, checking on each new arrival with gentle interest. Sarah Martinez returned, this time bringing specialized feed supplements she'd used successfully with rescued horses at her own ranch. As she helped Emma organize the medical supplies, she shared her observations about Thunder's behavior. "I've worked with wild horses for 20 years, she said, watching the Mustang make his rounds. "But I've never seen anything like this. He's not just staying here out of habit or dependency. He's chosen this role." The truth of Sarah's words became even more apparent as evening approached. When one of the new rescues, a young gelding named Storm, showed signs of colic, it was Thunder who first alerted the humans. His insistent pawing and focused attention drew Emma to Storm's stall before the condition could become severe. Dr. Miller, who had remained on call, arrived quickly to treat the horse, preventing what could have been a serious situation. As darkness fell over Pine Valley Ranch, the barn lights cast a warm glow through the windows, creating peaceful shadows that danced across the snow outside. Emma completed her evening checks, taking extra time with each new arrival to ensure they were settling in comfortably. The temperature was dropping rapidly, but the barn's new insulation and heating system kept the interior cozy. Thunder's evening routine had expanded to include careful observation of each occupied stall. He moved with purpose, pausing at each door to check on its occupant. Hope and Spirit still received special attention, but his concern now extended to the entire herd. When he finally settled into his own space for the night, his position allowed him to monitor both the main barn door and the row of stalls. The transformation of Pine Valley Ranch continued to unfold in ways Emma never expected. What had begun as a desperate plea from a sick Mustang had evolved into something far more significant. The sanctuary wasn't just providing shelter and medical care. It was becoming a place of healing for both animals and humans alike. Local veterinary students began requesting permission to observe and learn from their unique situation. Thunder's behavior had caught the attention of animal behaviorists who saw in him an opportunity to study the complex emotional capabilities of horses. Yet through all the attention, the Mustang remained focused on his self-appointed duties, undistracted by the growing interest in his story. That night, as Emma prepared to leave the barn, she paused to reflect on the day's events. The sound of peaceful breathing from the stalls mixed with the distant howl of winter wind. Thunder stood at his usual post, his silhouette strong and dignified in the dim light. His eyes met hers with an understanding that transcended the usual. Barriers between wild and domestic, human and horse. The sanctuary's future was taking shape around them, guided by the extraordinary example of a wild horse who had chosen to become something more. Each day brought new challenges and discoveries, new opportunities to witness the depth of understanding possible between species. The barn that had once echoed with emptiness now resonated with purpose and hope. Outside, the winter stars emerged one by one, their light reflecting off the snow-covered landscape. Inside, the horses settled into their nightly routines, their presence filling the old barn with new life and purpose. Thunder maintained his watchful guardianship, a living bridge between the wild spirit of his past and the compassionate heart of his chosen future. As Emma finally turned toward home, she understood that they were all part of something larger than themselves. The sanctuary was more than a place of refuge. It was becoming a testament to the extraordinary capabilities of animals to choose their own path, to demonstrate compassion, and to teach humans about the deeper connections possible between all living beings. The night deepened around Pine Valley Ranch, wrapping the barn in a peaceful silence broken only by the occasional soft sounds of horses at rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities for healing and growth. But for now, under the watchful eye of a remarkable Mustang, the sanctuary stood as a beacon of hope in the Montana wilderness, proof that sometimes the most profound transformations begin with a single act of compassion. Morning mist swirled through the valley as Emma trudged through knee-deep snow toward the sanctuary. The temperature had plummeted overnight, bringing with it the kind of bone-chilling cold that tested even the hardiest Montana residents. Her breath crystallized in the air as she approached the barn, where an unusual commotion caught her attention. The sound of agitated horses and Thunder's distinctive call spurred her into a run. Inside the barn, chaos reigned. Luna, the undernourished mare who had arrived with the recent rescues, was in obvious distress. Her flanks heaved with rapid breathing, and she paced her stall frantically. Thunder stood nearby, his behavior displaying a new level of urgency. He alternated between watching Luna and turning to the barn entrance, clearly trying to communicate something to Emma. Dr. Miller's truck wasn't due for hours, and the satellite phone showed no signal in the heavy storm. Emma would have to handle this situation alone, at least initially. As she approached Luna's stall, she noticed signs that made her heart race. The mare was showing early signs of labor, months earlier than anyone had expected. The rescue team hadn't even known she was pregnant. Thunder's behavior shifted as Emma entered the stall. The mighty Mustang positioned himself where he could observe both Luna and the barn entrance, his posture alert but calm. His presence seemed to have a soothing effect on the distressed mare, much as it had with Hope during her difficult delivery. Emma couldn't help but marvel at his intuitive understanding of what was needed. The next few hours tested everything Emma had learned in her years of veterinary assistance. Luna's labor progressed rapidly, but complications became apparent. The foal was positioned incorrectly, and without Dr. Miller's expertise, Emma would have to rely on her own knowledge and Thunder's inexplicable ability to keep the mare calm. Working in the dim light of early morning, Emma carefully assessed the situation. Luna's trust wavered between acceptance and panic, but each time she showed signs of distress, Thunder's soft nickering would calm her. The bond forming between the wild Mustang and the rescue horses continued to defy explanation, yet proved invaluable in this crisis. The storm outside intensified, driving snow and wind through every tiny crack in the barn's walls. Other horses stirred restlessly in their stalls, sensing the tension in the air. Hope kept spirit close, watching the unfolding drama with apparent concern. The sanctuary had become more than just a collection of rescued horses. It was a community, with Thunder as its unexpected guardian. Emma's hands trembled with cold and exhaustion as she worked to reposition the foal. Luna's strength was fading, her previously frantic movements becoming worryingly sluggish. Thunder's behavior changed subtly. He moved closer to the stall, his presence more pronounced. His eyes never left the struggling mare, as if lending her his own strength. Just as Emma's hope began to fade, a miracle unfolded in the soft light of the winter morning. With one final effort from Luna, guided by Emma's careful assistance, the foal finally emerged. Thunder's gentle rumbling seemed to encourage the exhausted mare as she worked to clean her newborn, while Emma quickly checked the foal's vitals. The tiny filly, despite her early arrival, appeared strong. Her dark coat, still wet from birth, suggested she would share her mother's coloring. As Emma worked to ensure both mother and foal were stable, she couldn't help but notice Thunder's continued vigilance. He remained close, watching over the new arrival with the same dedication he had shown to hope and spirit. The sound of an approaching vehicle cut through the storm's howl. Dr. Miller had somehow made it through the treacherous weather. His arrival brought not only medical expertise, but also a sense of relief. As he examined Luna and her foal, his weathered face broke into a smile. "You've done good work here, Emma," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Both of you have." His inclusion of Thunder in the praise wasn't lost on Emma. The Mustang's role in the sanctuary's success had become undeniable. From his initial desperate plea for help to his current position as guardian and calming presence, Thunder had shown capabilities that challenged everything they thought they knew about wild horses. As the day progressed, news of the new arrival spread through the local community despite the storm. The satellite phone began working again, bringing calls from supporters and volunteers offering assistance. The story of Thunder's latest involvement in a difficult birth added another chapter to the sanctuary's growing legend. The barn buzzed with careful activity as volunteers arrived to help with the day's tasks, their dedication proving stronger than the winter weather. Thunder maintained his watch over the new mother and foal while continuing his rounds of the other rescues. His ability to divide his attention and prioritize care never ceased to amaze those who witnessed it. Sarah Martinez arrived with emergency supplies, her truck barely visible through the swirling snow. As she helped Emma organize medical materials, she shared news from the wider horse rescue community. Word of Pine Valley Ranch's success with rehabilitation had spread, and other sanctuaries were beginning to request their advice on working with troubled horses. The filly's first attempts to stand brought a moment of collective joy to the barn. Luna, though exhausted, demonstrated remarkable patience with her wobbly offspring. Thunder's presence seemed to give her confidence, his calm energy helping to create a peaceful environment for the critical first hours of the foal's life. Emma spent the afternoon documenting the birth and subsequent care for the sanctuary's records. The growing collection of success stories served multiple purposes, helping secure funding, providing data for research, and offering hope to others working in horse rescue. Thunder's influence appeared in every narrative, his extraordinary behavior reshaping their understanding of what was possible. As evening approached, the storm began to ease, leaving behind a transformed landscape. The sanctuary stood like an island in a sea of white, its lights offering warm welcome to the occasional late volunteer. Inside, the atmosphere remained charged. With the day's events, though peace had returned to the rescued herd, Dr. Miller completed his final checks before departing, leaving detailed instructions for overnight observation. His appreciation for Thunder's contribution had grown from skepticism to genuine respect. "We're witnessing something unprecedented here," he remarked, watching the Mustang make his evening rounds. "Something that could change how we approach horse rehabilitation entirely." The sanctuary's newest resident, whom they named Aurora after the first light in which she was born, settled into life with remarkable ease. Luna's maternal instincts, supported by Thunder's protective presence, created an environment perfect for the premature foal's development. The barn's other residents seemed to understand the need for calm, maintaining an unusual quiet throughout the evening. Thunder's evolution continued to surprise everyone who witnessed it. His intelligence and empathy extended beyond basic instinct, suggesting levels of emotional sophistication that challenged conventional wisdom about horse behavior. Each day brought new examples of his ability to anticipate needs and respond appropriately to different situations. As night fell over Pine Valley Ranch, Emma completed her final rounds with a deep sense of gratitude. The sanctuary had faced its latest challenge and emerged stronger, thanks in large part to the extraordinary Mustang who had chosen to make this his home. Thunder's decision to stay, to become part of something larger than himself, had created ripples that continued to spread through the equine rescue community. The barn settled into its nighttime routine, the sound of content horses creating a peaceful symphony in the darkness. Thunder took up his usual position, able to monitor both the new mother and foal while keeping watch over the main entrance. His presence provided a sense of security that allowed everyone, human and horse alike, to rest easier. Outside, the storm's passing left behind a pristine blanket of snow that sparkled under the emerging stars. Inside, the warmth of shared purpose and unexpected connections created a haven of hope and healing. The sanctuary had become more than just a place of refuge. It was a living testament to the profound bonds possible between humans and horses. Emma's final task of the day was to check on Aurora one last time. The tiny filly slept peacefully beside her mother, their dark coats blending in the dim light. Thunder acknowledged Emma's presence with a soft nicker, his eyes reflecting the same dedication that had first brought him to the barn's door seeking help for another. As she prepared to leave for the night, Emma reflected on the extraordinary chain of events that had led to this moment. What had begun with one horse's desperate plea had evolved into something far more significant, a place where barriers between wild and domestic, human and animal, seemed to dissolve in the face of genuine compassion and understanding. The night deepened around the sanctuary, wrapping it in a peaceful silence, broken only by the occasional soft sounds of horses at rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities for growth and learning. But for now, under the watchful eye of an extraordinary Mustang, Pine Valley Ranch stood as a beacon of hope in the Montana wilderness, proof that the most profound transformations often begin with a single act of trust. Sunlight streamed through the frost-etched windows of Pine Valley Ranch's main office, where Emma sat surrounded by stacks of documentation and research papers. The small cabin, once her grandfather's retreat, had become the sanctuary's administrative center. A gentle tap at the door interrupted her concentration. Dr. Catherine Walsh, a renowned equine behaviorist from the University of Montana, had arrived for her scheduled observation session. The professor's interest in Thunder's extraordinary behavior had brought an unexpected dimension to the sanctuary's work. Her presence represented growing academic recognition of the unique phenomena unfolding at Pine Valley Ranch. As they walked toward the barn together, their breath visible in the crisp morning air, Dr. Walsh shared her preliminary thoughts on Thunder's capabilities. What we're seeing here defies conventional understanding of equine social structures, she explained, her enthusiasm evident despite the cold. A wild Mustang choosing to become not just a permanent resident, but an active facilitator of rehabilitation. It's unprecedented in documented research. The barn's interior greeted them with its familiar warmth and the soft sounds of horses starting their day. Thunder stood in his usual morning position, surveying the row of stalls with careful attention. His awareness of their entrance was evident in the slight turn of his head, but his focus remained primarily on his charges. Dr. Walsh began her observations, meticulously recording Thunder's interactions with each resident. His approach to different horses showed remarkable adaptation, gentle encouragement for the timid, firm boundaries for the more aggressive, and constant vigilance over the most vulnerable. The professor's notebook filled rapidly with detailed notes about his behavior patterns. A commotion from Storm's stall drew their attention. The young gelding, still recovering from his bout with colic, had become agitated during his morning feeding. Before either human could react, Thunder was already moving toward the disturbance. His presence alone seemed to have a calming effect, and within moments Storm's anxiety noticeably decreased. "Extraordinary," Dr. Walsh murmured, furiously documenting the interaction. "He's not just responding to distress, he's actively preventing escalation This suggests a level of emotional intelligence we've barely begun to understand in equines. Her academic detachment briefly gave way to wonder as she watched Thunder return to his rounds. The morning's routine continued with the arrival of volunteers and the daily visits from local veterinary students. The sanctuary had become a unique learning environment, offering opportunities to observe horse behavior and rehabilitation techniques that couldn't be found elsewhere. Thunder's tolerance of the constant observation spoke to his remarkable adaptation to his new role. Sarah Martinez arrived with her weekly delivery of specialized feed, bringing news from the wider equestrian community. Recognition of Pine Valley Ranch's work had spread beyond Montana, attracting attention from horse sanctuaries across the country. The methods developed here, guided by Thunder's intuitive understanding, were beginning to influence rehabilitation programs elsewhere. As the morning progressed, Dr. Walsh's observations took an unexpected turn. Thunder's behavior showed patterns that suggested not just emotional intelligence, but what appeared to be deliberate teaching. When Aurora, the premature foal, attempted her first ventures outside her stall, Thunder positioned himself as a safety barrier, allowing her to explore while preventing any possibility of injury. "This isn't just protective behavior," Dr. Walsh explained, watching the interaction closely. "He's actively creating learning opportunities while maintaining safety parameters. It's more analogous to human teaching methods than typical equine behavior." Her excitement was palpable as she documented each new observation. The sanctuary's daily operations continued around them, a well-choreographed dance of care and rehabilitation. Volunteers moved efficiently between tasks, their movements guided by the protocols Emma had developed based on Thunder's example. The formerly wild Mustang had inadvertently become the cornerstone of their rehabilitation methodology. Mid-morning brought an unexpected visitor, Marcus Thompson, a filmmaker known for his wildlife documentaries. His interest in Thunder's story had led him to Pine Valley Ranch, camera equipment in tow. Emma had initially hesitated about allowing filming, concerned about disrupting the sanctuary's careful balance, but Thunder's composed reaction to the camera's presence helped ease her worries. Dr. Walsh seized the opportunity to collaborate, sharing her insights as Marcus captured footage of Thunder's interactions with the other horses. The filmmaker's experienced eye recognized the unique nature of what they were witnessing. "This isn't just another animal story," he remarked, reviewing his initial footage. "This is something that could change how we understand cross-species communication." The sanctuary's resident horses continued their daily routines, seemingly unaffected by the increased human activity. Hope and Spirit demonstrated the success of Thunder's influence. The once troubled mare and her foal had become symbols of successful rehabilitation. Their story, which had started the sanctuary's journey, continued to inspire new developments in their methods. Luna and Aurora provided another testament to Thunder's extraordinary capabilities. The premature foal's development had exceeded all expectations, her progress carefully monitored by both Dr. Miller and Dr. Walsh. Thunder's role in her care seemed to adapt daily, shifting between protector, teacher, and social facilitator as needed. As afternoon light filled the barn with golden warmth, Dr. Walsh conducted interviews with the regular volunteers, gathering their observations and experiences. Each person had their own story about Thunder's influence, moments where his intervention had prevented problems or facilitated breakthrough progress with troubled horses. Emma found herself drawn into lengthy discussions about the future implications of their work. The sanctuary had evolved beyond its initial mission of rescue and rehabilitation. It was becoming a living laboratory for the study of equine intelligence and cross-species cooperation. Thunder's example was challenging long-held assumptions about the limitations of horse cognition and emotional capacity. Marcus's camera captured the subtle interactions that defined life at Pine Valley Ranch, the way Thunder communicated through body language, his methods of maintaining order among the resident horses, his incredible ability to anticipate and prevent problems before they escalated. Each moment added to the growing documentation of his extraordinary capabilities. Dr. Walsh's preliminary findings suggested implications that extended far beyond horse rehabilitation. Thunder's demonstrated abilities raised questions about the untapped potential in other horses, wild and domestic alike. His example suggested possibilities for developing new approaches to equine therapy and training based on mutual understanding rather than dominance. The afternoon brought a series of small demonstrations of Thunder's capabilities. When new hay bales were delivered, he helped organize the other horses' access, preventing the usual squabbles that often accompanied feeding time. His methods showed remarkable sophistication, using his presence to create orderly transitions between groups, ensuring each horse had fair access to resources. Sarah Martinez, who had stayed to assist with afternoon tasks, shared observations from her decades of horse experience. "I've worked with thousands of horses," she reflected, watching Thunder mediate between two young rescues. "But I've never seen anything approaching this level of conscious intervention. He's not just following instincts, he's problem-solving." Dr. Walsh's documentation continued as the day progressed, her notes filled with detailed observations of Thunder's methods. The academic community's initial skepticism about the sanctuary's claims had given way to genuine interest as evidence mounted. Thunder's case was becoming a cornerstone for new research into equine cognitive capabilities. As evening approached, Marcus captured final footage of Thunder's sunset rounds, his methodical check of each stall, his gentle interactions with the youngest residents, his vigilant monitoring of the more vulnerable horses. The filmmaker's experienced eye recognized the narrative unfolding before him. A story of intelligence and compassion that transcended species boundaries. The sanctuary settled into its evening routine, the filtered light creating long shadows across the barn floor. Dr. Walsh completed her day's observations, her excitement barely contained as she reviewed her notes. "What's happening here goes beyond anything previously documented in equine behavior studies," she concluded. "Thunder isn't just adapting to captivity, he's actively creating and maintaining a complex social support system." Emma's evening checks took on new significance in light of the day's observations. Each interaction she witnessed between Thunder and the other horses now carried deeper meaning. His choices, his methods of communication, his problem-solving approaches, all suggested levels of consciousness and intention that challenged existing paradigms of horse behavior. The night brought peaceful quiet to Pine Valley Ranch, broken only by the soft sounds of horses settling in for sleep. Thunder maintained his evening vigil, his silhouette strong against the barn's warm lighting. His presence represented more than just the success of one wild horse's rehabilitation. He had become a pioneer, opening new frontiers in our understanding of animal intelligence and cross-species cooperation. As Emma prepared to leave for the night, she reflected on the day's developments. The sanctuary's work had grown beyond her initial vision, guided by the extraordinary example of a Mustang who had chosen to become something more than his wild nature dictated. Thunder's story was still unfolding, each day bringing new insights into the depths of equine capability and the possibilities for genuine partnership between humans and horses. The stars emerged above Pine Valley Ranch, their light reflecting off the snow-covered landscape. Inside the barn, Thunder continued his watch, a living embodiment of the potential that existed in all horses, waiting to be recognized and understood. His journey from desperate plea to respected teacher had opened doors of perception that would influence equine care for generations to come. The first hints of spring whispered through Pine Valley Ranch as melting snow revealed patches of dormant grass beneath. Emma stood at the barn's entrance, watching the sunrise paint the mountains in shades of pink and gold. The peaceful moment shattered as an urgent call echoed across the valley. Not Thunder's familiar whinny, but a different voice, wild and desperate. Through the morning mist, a dark shape emerged from the tree line. Another Mustang, lean and powerful, approached the sanctuary with cautious determination. Emma's heart raced as she recognized the distinctive markings of a horse that had been spotted near Thunder's old territory. This was no coincidence. The wild stallion had deliberately sought out the sanctuary. Thunder's reaction defied expectation. Rather than displaying the territorial aggression typical of stallions, he positioned himself as a mediator. His posture communicated neither threat nor submission, but rather a composed awareness that suggested recognition. The newcomer, whom Emma would later name Shadow, bore signs of recent injury, a pronounced limp and visible scratches along his flanks. Dr. Miller arrived within the hour, alerted by Emma's urgent call. The veterinarian's experience with wild horses proved invaluable as they worked to assess Shadow's condition from a distance. Thunder's presence seemed to calm the injured Mustang, allowing them to move gradually closer. It was as if the sanctuary's guardian understood exactly what was needed to help his wild cousin. The morning unfolded in a delicate dance of trust-building. Shadow, despite his obvious pain, maintained a wary distance from the humans while staying within Thunder's sphere of influence. The injured stallion's behavior suggested he had deliberately sought help, guided perhaps by some unknown communication network among the wild herds. Sarah Martinez arrived mid-morning, bringing her expertise in wild horse behavior. Her presence added another layer of insight to the unfolding situation. "This isn't random," she observed, watching the interaction between the two stallions. "Somehow word has spread through the wild herds about this place, about Thunder." The sanctuary's regular residents remained remarkably calm, despite the newcomer's presence. Thunder's influence seemed to extend to maintaining order among the domestic horses while simultaneously managing Shadow's integration. His ability to balance multiple roles with such sophistication left even Dr. Walsh, who had returned for follow-up observations, amazed. As the day progressed, Shadow's trust gradually increased. Thunder's methods of encouragement showed remarkable subtlety, a series of small movements and gentle vocalizations that seemed to communicate safety and understanding. The wild stallion's eventual acceptance of human approach appeared to be based largely on Thunder's example. Dr. Miller's examination revealed the extent of Shadow's injuries, a deep muscle strain and numerous cuts, suggesting a narrow escape from predators or a fall in difficult terrain. The wild stallion's decision to seek help at the sanctuary rather than remain in his territory to heal raised intriguing questions about inter-horse communication and intelligence. The sanctuary's volunteers worked efficiently to prepare a suitable space for Shadow, guided by Thunder's apparent preferences. The wild stallion would need a stall that allowed him to see both the outside world and the other horses, maintaining a connection to both his wild nature and his new temporary community. Marcus Thompson, still documenting the sanctuary's daily life, captured remarkable footage of the two stallions' interactions. Thunder's methods of calming and guiding Shadow provided new insights into equine social structures and communication. The filmmaker's experienced eye recognized the significance of what they were witnessing, evidence of sophisticated cooperation between wild and domesticated horses. Dr. Walsh's observation notes grew increasingly detailed as she documented the subtle ways Thunder facilitated Shadow's integration into the sanctuary environment. "This goes beyond simple herd behavior," she explained to Emma. Thunder is actively teaching another horse about the sanctuary's dynamics. He's functioning as a cultural interpreter between wild and domestic environments. As afternoon light filtered through the barn's windows, Shadow began showing signs of accepting his temporary shelter. Thunder's constant presence seemed to reassure the wild stallion that this strange environment offered safety and healing. The sanctuary's other residents demonstrated remarkable acceptance of the newcomer. Following Thunder's calm example, the day's events attracted attention from local media, drawn by reports of another wild horse seeking help at Pine Valley Ranch. Emma handled their interest carefully, aware that too much human presence could disrupt Shadow's delicate adjustment and process. Thunder's influence proved valuable here too, his calm demeanor helping to maintain stability despite the increased activity. Dr. Miller's treatment plan for Shadow required regular human interaction, a challenge with a truly wild horse. Yet Thunder's presence seemed to accelerate the trust-building process, his example showing Shadow that human contact could bring relief and healing. The wild stallion's gradual acceptance of treatment demonstrated an extraordinary level of trust in his domesticated cousin's judgment. Sarah Martinez's expertise provided valuable context as they developed a rehabilitation strategy for Shadow. Wild horses typically avoid human contact at all costs, she explained, watching Thunder guide Shadow through their approach. This level of voluntary interaction suggests communication between herds about the sanctuary's role. They're spreading the word. The sanctuary's daily routine adapted to accommodate their new guest while maintaining essential care for the other residents. Thunder's ability to balance multiple responsibilities, guiding Shadow, maintaining order among the domestic horses, and continuing his usual supervisory roles, demonstrated remarkable cognitive flexibility. As evening approached, the sanctuary settled into a modified rhythm. Shadow, though still cautious, had accepted his stall and the presence of humans at a distance. Thunder's evening rounds now included regular checks on the wild stallion, his attention divided efficiently between all his charges. The bond forming between the two horses suggested deeper levels of understanding than anyone had previously credited to equine intelligence. Dr. Walsh remained late into the evening, documenting the ongoing interactions. What we're seeing here challenges fundamental assumptions about horse behavior, she noted, watching Thunder mediate another approach to Shadow's stall. This isn't just about sanctuary, it's about sophisticated social networks and intelligence we're only beginning to understand. The sanctuary's night staff reported continued evidence of Thunder's influence throughout the evening. Shadow's adjustment to confined space progressed more quickly than expected, guided by Thunder's constant reassurance. The wild stallion's trust in his domesticated counterpart appeared to override his natural instincts for flight and isolation. Local ranch owners, hearing about Shadow's arrival, began sharing similar stories of wild horses showing unusual behavior near their properties. A pattern emerged suggesting that the Mustang herds had developed some form of communication about safe spaces and available help. Thunder's influence appeared to extend far beyond the sanctuary's boundaries. As night fell over Pine Valley Ranch, Emma completed her final rounds with a sense of wonder at the day's developments. Shadow's arrival and Thunder's response had opened new chapters in their understanding of horse intelligence and social structures. The sanctuary's mission was evolving, guided by the extraordinary example of a Mustang who had become a bridge between two worlds. Thunder maintained his vigilant watch through the night, his presence a constant reassurance to both Shadow and the sanctuary's other residents. His ability to navigate between wild and domestic spaces, to facilitate healing and understanding, continued to exceed all expectations. The bonds forming within the sanctuary suggested possibilities for horse rehabilitation that no one had previously imagined. The stars emerged above the valley, their light reflecting off the remaining patches of snow. Inside the barn, two stallions, one wild, one chosen to be more, shared space in a way that defied natural instincts and opened new frontiers in our understanding of equine consciousness. Shadow's arrival had added another layer to Thunder's extraordinary story, proving that the sanctuary's influence reached far beyond its physical boundaries. As the night deepened, Pine Valley Ranch stood as a testament to the unexpected ways healing could manifest. Thunder's journey from desperate plea to respected teacher had expanded to include the role of ambassador between wild and domestic worlds. His example continued to challenge assumptions and open new possibilities for understanding the complex capabilities of horses in both worlds. Early morning light spilled across Pine Valley Ranch, illuminating a scene of unusual activity. Representatives from the National Equine Research Institute had arrived before dawn, their vehicles forming a line along the gravel driveway. Emma welcomed them with a mixture of pride and apprehension, knowing that today's observations could influence equine rehabilitation practices nationwide. The Institute's team, led by renowned behaviorist Dr. Rebecca Chen, came equipped with sophisticated monitoring equipment. Their goal was to document and analyze the extraordinary communication methods Thunder had developed within the sanctuary. The mounting evidence of his influence on both domestic and wild horses had caught the attention of the scientific community. Inside the barn, life continued its carefully orchestrated rhythm. Thunder moved between the stalls with practiced efficiency, his presence maintaining the delicate balance between the sanctuary's diverse residents. Dr. Chen's team watched in fascination as he demonstrated his unique approach to horse rehabilitation, their instruments recording every subtle interaction. The morning's first challenge arrived with the feed delivery. Typically routine, the process became a demonstration of Thunder's organizational capabilities. He anticipated potential conflicts, positioning himself strategically to prevent food-related aggression. His methods showed remarkable sophistication, using body language and soft vocalizations to maintain order. Dr. Chen's observations focused particularly on Thunder's interactions with new arrivals. A recently rescued mare, bearing obvious signs of abuse, had arrived the previous evening. Thunder's approach to her demonstrated his adaptive intelligence, maintaining distance while showing interest, allowing her to set the pace of interaction. His techniques reflected an understanding of trauma that seemed impossible for a horse to possess. The Institute's research team set up observation stations throughout the sanctuary, their cameras capturing Thunder's movements from multiple angles. The data they gathered would contribute to groundbreaking studies on equine cognition and social structures. Emma found herself drawn into lengthy discussions about the implications of Thunder's methods for traditional horse training approaches. Mid-morning brought an unexpected opportunity for the researchers to witness Thunder's crisis management abilities. A sudden thunderstorm triggered anxiety in several of the more sensitive horses. Before the human handlers could react, Thunder had already begun implementing his calming routine, moving between stalls, offering reassurance through carefully timed interactions. Dr. Chen's amazement grew as she documented Thunder's responses. "This isn't just learned behavior," she explained to Emma. "He's actively assessing situations and developing solutions. The level of cognitive processing involved suggests capabilities we've never properly credited to horses." Her team's instruments recorded every detail of Thunder's methods for future analysis. The sanctuary's regular volunteers worked alongside the research team, sharing their observations of Thunder's daily routines. Each person had stories of moments where his intervention had prevented problems or facilitated breakthroughs with troubled horses. The accumulated evidence painted a picture of intelligence and empathy that challenged conventional understanding of equine capabilities. As noon approached, the Institute's team witnessed another remarkable demonstration of Thunder's abilities. A young colt, still adjusting to sanctuary life, became entangled in his lead rope during routine exercise. Thunder's response showed both intelligence and constraint, alerting human handlers while maintaining a calming presence that prevented the colt from panicking. The afternoon's activities included scheduled rehabilitation sessions with several rescued horses. The research team observed Thunder's role in these sessions, noting his ability to adjust his approach based on each horse's specific needs. His methods suggested an understanding of individual personalities and trauma responses that went far beyond instinctive behavior. Dr. Chen's preliminary findings indicated patterns that could revolutionize equine rehabilitation practices. Thunder's techniques, though impossible to fully replicate, offered insights into more effective approaches to horse care and training. His examples suggested possibilities for developing new methodologies based on understanding and cooperation rather than dominance. The sanctuary's success stories provided compelling evidence of Thunder's influence. Horses that had arrived broken in body and spirit now showed remarkable recovery, their transformation guided by his patient example. The Institute's documentation of these cases would help establish new benchmarks for successful rehabilitation programs. Late afternoon brought a visit from local veterinary students, eager to observe Thunder's methods. The interaction between academic research and practical application created exciting possibilities for advancing equine care. Thunder's calm acceptance of the increased human presence demonstrated his adaptation to his role as both subject and teacher. The research team's presence attracted media attention, bringing reporters to document the Institute's work at Pine Valley Ranch. Emma managed their interest carefully, ensuring that the sanctuary's peaceful environment remained protected. Thunder's composed reaction to the increased activity helped maintain stability throughout the busy day. As evening approached, Dr. Chen's team began correlating their data, finding patterns that suggested even greater complexity in Thunder's behavior than initially suspected. His methods of maintaining order and facilitating rehabilitation showed evidence of planned responses and adaptive problem-solving that challenged existing theories about horse intelligence. The sanctuary's evening routine provided further opportunities for observation. Thunder's systematic checks of each resident, his attention to those needing extra care, and his ongoing support of new arrivals demonstrated a level of organizational awareness that amazed even experienced horse handlers. The research team worked late into the night, documenting every detail of his procedures. Local ranch owners, drawn by news of the Institute's presence, arrived to share their experiences with Thunder's influence on their own horses. A pattern emerged of improved behavior and reduced anxiety in horses that had spent time under his guidance. The ripple effects of his methods extended far beyond the sanctuary's boundaries. Dr. Chen's team captured footage of Thunder's nighttime routines, using specialized equipment to record his movements in low-light conditions. His evening rounds showed the same careful attention to detail that characterized his daytime activities, suggesting conscious choice rather than mere habit in his protective behaviors. The sanctuary's night staff reported continued evidence of Thunder's influence through the quiet hours. His presence maintained calm among the residents, his occasional soft nickering offering reassurance to those still adjusting to their new environment. The research team's instruments recorded these subtle interactions, building a comprehensive picture of his communication methods. As the moon rose over Pine Valley Ranch, Emma reviewed the day's observations with Dr. Chen. The Institute's findings would help secure additional funding for the sanctuary while advancing scientific understanding of equine capabilities. Thunder's example had opened new frontiers in their comprehension of horse intelligence and social structures. The stars emerged above the valley, their light reflecting off the Institute's equipment. Inside the barn, Thunder continued his watch, unperturbed by the day's scientific scrutiny. His methods, now documented for future study, would influence horse care practices for generations to come. The sanctuary stood as a living laboratory where new understandings of equine consciousness were constantly emerging. The night deepened around Pine Valley Ranch, wrapping the barn in peaceful quiet, broken only by the soft sounds of horses at rest. Thunder maintained his vigil, his presence a constant reassurance to both resident horses and human observers. His journey from desperate plea to subject of scientific study had opened new chapters in our understanding of the profound capabilities hidden within these magnificent animals. Spring brought transformation to Pine Valley Ranch as the last patches of snow surrendered to emerging wildflowers. The morning sun cast long shadows across the paddocks where Thunder stood watch over a remarkable scene. The sanctuary's first guided interaction session between traumatized horses and children with special needs. The program, developed under careful observation of Thunder's methods, represented a new frontier in equine-assisted therapy. Lisa Matthews, a pioneer in therapeutic riding, had traveled from Colorado to witness Thunder's approach firsthand. Her presence marked a significant expansion of the sanctuary's mission, bridging the gap between animal rehabilitation and human healing. Emma watched from the fence line as Thunder demonstrated an uncanny awareness of each child's specific needs. The morning session began with Maya, a 10-year-old girl who hadn't spoken since witnessing a tragic accident 6 months ago. Thunder's interaction with her showed extraordinary sensitivity, his movements gentle and precise as he positioned himself near her wheelchair. The girl's therapist observed with quiet amazement as Maya's hand slowly reached out to touch Thunder's nose, her first voluntary movement in weeks. Dr. Miller arrived for his regular rounds, pausing to document Thunder's participation in the therapy sessions. The veterinarian's initial skepticism about involving a former wild horse in such delicate work had given way to profound respect. Thunder's ability to adjust his approach for each child demonstrated levels of empathy that defied conventional understanding of equine capabilities. The sanctuary's resident horses watched from nearby paddocks, their own behavior notably calmer in Thunder's presence. Even the most troubled rescues showed marked improvement when included in these controlled therapy sessions. The mighty Mustang had become more than a guardian. He was now a bridge between species, facilitating healing on multiple levels. Lisa's professional assessment added weight to the growing evidence of Thunder's exceptional abilities. His awareness of human emotional states goes beyond anything I've encountered in 30 years of therapeutic riding, she noted, watching him guide a young boy with autism through their first interaction. The child's usual anxiety appeared to melt away under Thunder's patient attention. Mid-morning brought another breakthrough as Sophie, a 7-year-old struggling with post-traumatic stress, found herself drawn into Thunder's calm presence. The horse's careful positioning created a natural safety zone that allowed the girl to gradually explore connection on her own terms. Her mother watched through tears as Sophie's defensive walls began to lower for the first time since her trauma. The therapy team documented each interaction, building a comprehensive record of Thunder's methods. His techniques suggested possibilities for revolutionizing equine-assisted therapy programs. The way he anticipated and responded to each child's emotional state demonstrated an understanding that went far beyond simple animal instinct. Sarah Martinez arrived with additional support staff, her expertise helping to structure the expanding therapy program. The sanctuary's success had drawn attention from medical professionals interested in incorporating Thunder's approach into traditional treatment plans. His influence was reshaping understanding of the potential for animal-assisted healing. The afternoon sessions introduced new challenges as Thunder worked with children facing physical disabilities. His patience showed no signs of wearing thin, as he adapted his movements to accommodate different mobility aids and support equipment. Each interaction reinforced his extraordinary capacity for understanding and responding to human needs. Local educators arrived to observe the program, recognizing potential applications for working with struggling students. Thunder's presence had a notably calming effect on children with attention difficulties, allowing them to focus and engage in ways that often eluded them in traditional settings. The implications for educational therapy sparked intense discussion among the observers. Emma found herself drawn into conversations about expanding the sanctuary's programs to serve more children. Thunder's example had opened doors to new possibilities in therapeutic approaches. His ability to connect with humans who struggled with traditional social interactions suggested pathways for healing that hadn't previously been considered. The day's activities provided continuous evidence of Thunder's sophisticated understanding of human emotional states. He showed remarkable ability to distinguish between different types of fear or anxiety, adjusting his approach accordingly. The therapy team's notes filled pages with observations of his methods and their effects on the children's responses. As afternoon light softened across the valley, Thunder maintained his gentle vigilance over the therapy sessions. His presence created an atmosphere of safety that allowed even the most traumatized children to begin exploring connection. The sanctuary had become more than a place of healing for horses. It was now a haven where human and animal spirits could mend together. Lisa's professional evaluation of the program exceeded all expectations. Her documentation would help establish protocols for incorporating Thunder's methods into therapeutic riding programs nationwide. The Mustang's journey from wild horse to healing facilitator had opened new frontiers in understanding the potential for cross-species therapeutic connection. The sanctuary's regular residents seemed to absorb Thunder's example, showing increased sensitivity to human emotional states. Horses that had arrived broken and fearful now participated carefully in supervised therapy sessions, their own healing journey enriched by their role in helping others. The ripple effects of Thunder's influence continued to expand in unexpected ways. Evening brought reflection as the therapy team reviewed the day's progress. Each child's response to Thunder's approach had added to their understanding of possibilities for healing. His methods challenged conventional wisdom about the limitations of animal-assisted therapy, suggesting deeper levels of connection than previously thought possible. The sanctuary's transformation continued as plans developed for expanding the therapy programs. Thunder's calm acceptance of each new challenge demonstrated his remarkable adaptability. His presence had created a space where barriers between species dissolved, allowing genuine healing to emerge through trust and understanding. Parents gathered to share stories of changes they'd observed in their children since beginning work with Thunder. Small victories emerged in their narratives: a first smile, a moment of spontaneous laughter, a peaceful night's sleep after months of nightmares. The Mustang's influence extended far beyond the sanctuary's boundaries, touching lives in profound and lasting ways. As darkness settled over Pine Valley Ranch, Thunder's evening rounds included careful checks on the therapy program's equipment. His attention to detail extended to ensuring each child's space remained safe and welcoming. The sanctuary's night staff noted his continued awareness of specific needs, even after the demanding day's activities. The moon rose over the valley, casting silver light across paddocks where such extraordinary healing took place. Inside the barn, Thunder maintained his vigilant presence, ready to support any resident, human or horse, who might need reassurance through the night. His journey had expanded beyond anything imaginable, creating new possibilities for understanding and connection between species. Stars appeared above the sanctuary, their light reflecting off the riding arena where so many breakthroughs had occurred. Thunder's example continued to challenge assumptions about the capabilities of horses to participate in human healing. His presence had transformed Pine Valley Ranch into a place where hope flourished and barriers dissolved, allowing new pathways to recovery for all who sought refuge there. The Montana summer arrived with unexpected ferocity, bringing scorching temperatures and tinder-dry conditions to Pine Valley Ranch. Emma surveyed the parched landscape from the barn's entrance, concern etching lines across her forehead. The weather forecast promised no relief, and the sanctuary faced its first serious environmental challenge under Thunder's guardianship. Smoke from distant wildfires drifted through the valley, carrying with it an underlying tension that affected both horses and humans. Thunder's behavior showed subtle changes as he responded to the growing environmental stress. His rounds became more frequent, his attention to water sources notably increased, and his positioning of the herd reflected careful consideration of wind direction and potential escape routes. Dr. Miller arrived early, bringing updated evacuation protocols from the county emergency services. The veterinarian's experience with disaster response added valuable perspective to their preparation efforts. Thunder watched intently as they reviewed contingency plans, his intelligent eyes tracking their movements as they checked emergency, equipment and supplies. The sanctuary's resident horses displayed increasing restlessness as the air quality deteriorated. Yet Thunder's presence maintained a remarkable calm among them, his methodical movements and steady demeanor providing reassurance. Even the most sensitive animals appeared to take cues from his composed response to the environmental threats. Sarah Martinez brought news of fire lines moving closer to neighboring ranches. Her updates added urgency to their preparation efforts, yet Thunder's behavior suggested no immediate panic. The Mustang's wild instincts, refined by his time at the sanctuary, seemed to provide unique insight into the balance between readiness and unnecessary alarm. Mid-morning brought the first test of their emergency procedures as a small brush fire ignited at the valley's edge. Thunder's response proved invaluable. Before the smoke was visible to human observers, his altered behavior had alerted staff to the developing situation. His early warning allowed for rapid response that prevented the fire's spread toward the sanctuary. The day's rising temperatures forced modifications to normal routines. Thunder demonstrated remarkable adaptation, guiding the herd's movement to utilize available shade and maintaining order during restricted water access. His methods of managing resource competition among stressed horses showed sophisticated understanding of both environmental and social dynamics. Local wildlife began appearing at the sanctuary's boundaries, driven by the same environmental pressures affecting the domestic horses. Thunder's response to these visitors revealed another layer of his extraordinary capabilities. He maintained clear boundaries while allowing desperate animals access to water sources, displaying a natural wisdom about balancing protection with compassion. The afternoon brought scattered thunderstorms, their lightning creating new fire risks while offering little real relief. Thunder's behavior during the storms provided crucial guidance for the sanctuary's emergency protocols. His positioning of the herd and utilization of natural shelter demonstrated instinctive understanding of weather-related threats. Emergency response teams established a command center near the sanctuary, recognizing its potential role as a safe haven for evacuated livestock. Thunder's calm presence proved essential as strange horses began arriving, their owners seeking refuge from advancing fire lines. His methods of integrating newcomers while maintaining order became invaluable during the crisis. The sanctuary's water management systems faced increasing strain as more animals arrived seeking shelter. Thunder's influence helped prevent the chaos that typically accompanied resource competition in stress situations. His example led other horses to maintain orderly access to limited water sources, demonstrating remarkable social organization under pressure. As smoke thickened in the valley, respiratory concerns became paramount for both horses and humans. Thunder's positioning of vulnerable animals in areas with better air quality showed impressive awareness of individual needs. His attention to those struggling with breathing difficulties guided medical intervention priorities. The day's challenges continued as evacuation orders reached neighboring properties. Thunder's behavior provided constant reassurance to frightened horses arriving from threatened areas. His presence helped maintain calm during chaotic arrivals, his methods of integration preventing panic from spreading through the expanding herd. Local rescue organizations coordinated with the sanctuary to manage the influx of displaced animals. Thunder's role in maintaining order proved crucial as space and resources faced increasing pressure. His ability to communicate calm authority to strange horses facilitated smoother integration of emergency arrivals. Evening brought no relief from the environmental stress, but Thunder's vigilance never wavered. His continued attention to each animal's needs, despite his own obvious discomfort from the smoke-filled air, demonstrated extraordinary dedication. The sanctuary's success in managing the crisis owed much to his steadfast example. The night sky glowed orange with distant fires, creating an apocalyptic backdrop to Thunder's rounds. His movement patterns adapted to maintain optimal positioning for quick evacuation if needed. The sanctuary's emergency lighting cast strange shadows across the paddocks, where displaced horses huddled together, finding comfort in shared space under Thunder's protection. Teams of firefighters established fire breaks around the sanctuary's perimeter, their activity adding another layer of stress to the situation. Thunder's calm acceptance of their presence helped prevent panic among the horses, his behavior suggesting understanding of the protective measures being implemented. As midnight approached, a new challenge emerged as power failures plunged the valley into darkness. Thunder's navigation of the blackout demonstrated another aspect of his capabilities. His confidence in the dark helped maintain order among frightened animals, his movements providing guidance for both horses and humans struggling with the lack of light. The sanctuary's emergency generators provided limited illumination, creating islands of light in the smoky darkness. Thunder utilized these lit areas, strategically positioning vulnerable animals where they could be easily monitored. His organizational skills proved invaluable as staff worked to maintain essential care under difficult conditions. Dawn brought little improvement in conditions, but Thunder's unwavering dedication helped maintain stability through the continuing crisis. His example inspired both humans and horses to remain calm and focused despite the environmental threats surrounding them. The sanctuary had become a beacon of hope in the chaos, its success in managing the emergency largely due to the extraordinary Mustang's influence. The morning light revealed the full scope of Thunder's overnight efforts. Organized groups of horses positioned for optimal protection, clear access routes maintained despite the darkness, and remarkably calm behavior among animals that should have been panicked by the situation. His natural wisdom had helped the sanctuary weather its first major crisis, proving that sometimes the best solutions come from trusting animal instincts refined by compassion and experience. Autumn painted Pine Valley Ranch in vibrant hues as preparations began for a momentous occasion. The International Equine Welfare Conference had chosen the sanctuary as its host site, drawing specialists from around the globe to witness Thunder's extraordinary impact on horse rehabilitation. Emma watched from her grandfather's old office as delegates arrived, their vehicles creating dust trails along the winding access road. Distinguished veterinarians, behaviorists, and sanctuary operators gathered in the newly constructed conference center, eager to learn from Thunder's example. The Mustang's methods had sparked a revolution in equine care, challenging traditional approaches and inspiring new understanding of horse consciousness. His presence during the conference would provide unprecedented opportunities for professional observation. Dr. Rebecca Chen presented her groundbreaking research on Thunder's communication techniques, supported by months of detailed documentation. The assembled experts listened intently as she outlined patterns that suggested sophisticated problem-solving and emotional intelligence far beyond previously accepted limits of equine capability. Video demonstrations highlighted Thunder's extraordinary ability to adapt his approach for different situations. Morning sessions focused on practical applications of Thunder's rehabilitation methods. The Mustang himself provided perfect illustration, working with troubled horses in real time as cameras captured his techniques. International observers watched in amazement as he demonstrated his unique approach to gaining trust and facilitating healing among traumatized animals. Sarah Martinez coordinated demonstrations of Thunder's influence on emergency response protocols. Her presentation included footage from recent crisis situations, showing how his natural instincts enhanced disaster preparedness and herd management under extreme conditions. The practical implications of his methods drew intense interest from sanctuary operators facing similar challenges. Lisa Matthews shared compelling data on Thunder's contributions to therapeutic riding programs. Her documentation of breakthrough moments with special needs children demonstrated the profound impact of his gentle approach. Medical professionals in attendance recognized potential applications for expanding animal-assisted therapy based on his example. The conference facilities overlooked paddocks where Thunder continued his daily routines, unperturbed by the international attention. His interactions with resident horses provided constant demonstration of the principles being discussed inside. Delegates frequently paused in their discussions to observe his natural exhibition of the techniques under review. Dr. Miller's presentation on Thunder's medical intuition generated particular interest among attending veterinarians. Case studies revealed numerous instances where the Mustang's behavior had alerted staff to developing health issues before clinical signs became apparent. His ability to identify and respond to distressed animals suggested possibilities for improving. Early intervention protocols, afternoon breakout sessions explored specific aspects of Thunder's methodology. Experts in equine behavior analyzed his techniques for maintaining order among large groups of horses, noting how his approach minimized conflict while maximizing resource utilization. His natural leadership style offered insights into more effective management strategies for large sanctuaries. The sanctuary's success stories provided compelling evidence of Thunder's impact. Horses that had arrived broken in spirit now demonstrated remarkable recovery, their transformation attributed to his patient guidance. Each case study added weight to the growing body of evidence supporting his revolutionary approach to rehabilitation. Innovation emerged from collaborative discussions as professionals shared ideas for implementing Thunder's methods in their own facilities. His influence extended beyond direct interaction, inspiring new approaches to sanctuary design and operation. Architects and facility planners incorporated insights from his natural organization of space into their designs for rehabilitation centers. Evening sessions focused on the scientific implications of Thunder's cognitive capabilities. Researchers presented evidence suggesting levels of emotional intelligence and social awareness previously unrecognized in equines. His demonstrated ability to understand and respond to complex situations challenged fundamental assumptions about horse consciousness. The conference's international scope brought diverse perspectives on Thunder's impact. Representatives from wildlife preserves recognized applications for his methods in managing interactions between wild and domestic animals. His natural ability to bridge these worlds offered insights for conservation efforts worldwide. As darkness fell, delegates gathered for evening observations of Thunder's nighttime routines. His systematic approach to maintaining herd security impressed even experienced sanctuary operators. The Mustang's dedication to his self-appointed duties never wavered despite the unusual level of human activity around the facility. Documentation teams captured Thunder's interactions for future study, building an archive of his methods for training purposes. His legacy would extend beyond the sanctuary through educational materials being developed based on conference findings. Future generations of horse handlers would study his example of compassionate leadership and intuitive care. Research proposals emerged from professional collaborations formed during the conference. Thunder's demonstrations had inspired new questions about equine capabilities and social structures. Scientists from various disciplines recognized opportunities for groundbreaking studies based on his exhibited behaviors. The sanctuary's role as a living laboratory gained formal recognition through partnerships established during the conference. Academic institutions committed resources to ongoing study of Thunder's methods, ensuring that his influence would continue to advance understanding of horse rehabilitation and care. Local community leaders attended evening receptions, celebrating the sanctuary's international recognition. Thunder's impact had brought unexpected economic benefits to the region, creating opportunities for related businesses and services. His presence had transformed Pine Valley Ranch into a center for innovation in equine care. Professional certification programs began taking shape as experts collaborated on standardizing approaches based on Thunder's methods. His natural wisdom would inform training protocols for future generations of sanctuary operators and rehabilitation specialists. The conference marked the beginning of formal incorporation of his techniques into professional practice. As midnight approached, Thunder maintained his vigilant presence, undistracted by the continuing discussions of his abilities. His dedication to the sanctuary's residents demonstrated the authentic nature of his methods. No amount of academic analysis could fully explain the depth of his commitment to helping troubled horses find peace and purpose. Stars appeared above Pine Valley Ranch, witnessing the convergence of scientific inquiry and natural wisdom. Thunder's journey from desperate plea to internationally recognized example of equine capability had opened new frontiers in understanding. His legacy would continue through the countless lives touched by his extraordinary example of compassion and healing. Winter wrapped Pine Valley Ranch in a blanket of pristine snow as Emma reviewed construction plans for the sanctuary's expansion. A generous grant from the International Equine Welfare Foundation had provided resources for building additional rehabilitation facilities. The sound of heavy machinery echoed across the valley as crews began groundwork for the new structures. Thunder's attention focused on an area beyond the construction site, his behavior suggesting awareness of something beyond human perception. His intense gaze toward the eastern ridgeline prompted Emma to investigate. Through swirling snow, she spotted movement, a small herd of wild horses making their way down from higher elevations, driven by harsh weather conditions. Dr. Miller arrived to find the sanctuary preparing for unexpected guests. Thunder's positioning suggested intimate knowledge of wild herd behavior, anticipating their approach path and needs. His presence seemed to calm both resident horses and newcomers, facilitating peaceful integration as the wild horses sought shelter from the storm. The construction teams paused their work, watching in amazement as Thunder orchestrated the arrival of his wild cousins. His methods of space management and resource allocation demonstrated remarkable forethought. Without human intervention, He created clear pathways and designated areas for the newcomers, preventing potential conflicts with resident horses. Sarah Martinez documented the interaction between domestic and wild horses, noting how Thunder's influence prevented the chaos typically associated with such encounters. His natural diplomacy created an environment where both groups could coexist peacefully. The situation provided unexpected opportunities for studying wild horse social dynamics. Archaeological surveyors required for the expansion project made an extraordinary discovery near the area where Thunder had been focusing his attention. Beneath the winter soil lay evidence of ancient Native American horse management practices. The Mustang's interest in this specific location raised intriguing questions about inherited memory and instinctual knowledge. Dr. Catherine Walsh arrived with a team of researchers drawn by reports of Thunder's role in facilitating wild herd integration. Their observations revealed patterns suggesting sophisticated understanding of both wild and domestic horse social structures. His methods bridged ancient wisdom with modern rehabilitation techniques. The sanctuary's resident horses demonstrated remarkable acceptance of their wild visitors, following Thunder's example of peaceful coexistence. His ability to maintain order while allowing natural social interactions provided new insights into herd dynamics. The situation created unprecedented opportunities for studying horse behavior across the wild domestic spectrum. Local tribal elders visited the archaeological site, sharing historical knowledge that shed new light on Thunder's behaviors. Their traditional understanding of horse-human relationships aligned remarkably with his demonstrated methods. The Mustang seemed to embody ancient wisdom about harmony between domestic and wild spaces. The winter storm intensified, forcing construction delays but creating opportunities for observing Thunder's crisis management capabilities. His organization of available resources and space ensured both resident and wild horses remained safe and comfortable. The situation demonstrated his extraordinary ability to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining order. Dr. Miller's documentation of the wild horse's condition revealed interesting patterns. Many showed signs of seeking the sanctuary deliberately, suggesting communication networks among wild herds about safe havens. Thunder's reputation appeared to extend far beyond the valley, influencing horse behavior across wide territories. Evening brought new challenges as limited visibility complicated care routines. Thunder's natural ability to navigate in dark and stormy conditions proved invaluable. His methods of maintaining order despite environmental challenges demonstrated sophisticated problem-solving capabilities that amazed even experienced handlers. The archaeological team's findings suggested the sanctuary site had historically served as a gathering place for horses, both wild and domestic. Thunder's selection of specific areas for different activities aligned mysteriously with ancient usage patterns. His natural wisdom seemed to connect with deep historical knowledge of the land. Sarah Martinez collaborated with tribal historians to document parallels between Thunder's methods and traditional horse handling practices. His intuitive understanding of space usage and herd management reflected principles preserved in indigenous oral traditions. The Mustang appeared to bridge ancient and modern approaches to horse care. The wild herd's presence attracted interest from conservation organizations studying migration patterns. Thunder's role in facilitating peaceful interaction between wild and domestic horses offered insights for wildlife management programs. His methods suggested possibilities for creating sustainable interfaces between wild and developed areas. As midnight approached, the storm's intensity finally began to ease. Thunder's organization of sleeping arrangements demonstrated remarkable consideration for both resident and wild horses. His planning ensured comfortable rest areas while maintaining necessary separation between groups with different needs. The archaeological team's continued excavation revealed artifacts suggesting centuries of horse-human interaction on the site. Thunder's behavior patterns showed mysterious alignment with historical usage of specific areas. His natural wisdom seemed to tap into an ancient understanding of the land's purpose as a sanctuary for horses. Dawn brought clearer weather and new insights into Thunder's methods. His organization of morning feeding demonstrated sophisticated resource management techniques that prevented competition between domestic and wild horses. The situation provided valuable data for developing improved sanctuary management protocols. The wild herd's behavior suggested they recognized Thunder's authority despite their free-ranging nature. His ability to maintain order without force offered lessons for wildlife management practices. The Mustang's natural leadership style demonstrated possibilities for more harmonious approaches to horse conservation. Local media arrived to document the unique situation, drawn by reports of wild horses seeking shelter at the sanctuary. Thunder's calm management of the additional attention prevented disruption to either resident or wild horses. His methods of maintaining order while accommodating human interest demonstrated remarkable adaptability. As morning light filled the valley, evidence of Thunder's overnight efforts became clear. His organization of space had created natural boundaries that allowed both wild and domestic horses to feel secure. The Mustang's intuitive understanding of different groups' needs had prevented potential conflicts during the challenging night. The sanctuary's expansion plans underwent modification to incorporate insights gained from observing Thunder's space utilization. His natural wisdom about horse movement and social interaction influenced facility design decisions. The construction team integrated traditional knowledge with modern architectural approaches, creating spaces that would support both rehabilitation and research. The sun emerged fully, illuminating a scene of remarkable harmony between wild and domestic horses under Thunder's guidance. His presence had transformed a potential crisis into an opportunity for learning and growth. The sanctuary's role as a bridge between wild and domestic worlds gained new significance through his example. Golden morning light washed over Pine Valley Ranch as an unusual gathering assembled outside the newly completed education center. University students from across the country had arrived for the sanctuary's first intensive training program in innovative horse rehabilitation methods. Emma watched from the observation deck as Thunder moved purposefully among the paddocks, seemingly aware of his role in the upcoming sessions. Professor Margaret Harrison, a leading expert in animal cognition, addressed the assembled students, outlining the revolutionary nature of Thunder's impact on equine behavioral science. The Mustang's demonstrated capabilities had sparked a complete re-evaluation of horse intelligence and emotional capacity. Today's sessions would provide direct observation of his methods in action. The morning's first demonstration focused on Thunder's approach to evaluating new arrivals. A recently rescued mare, still bearing physical and emotional scars from neglect, provided a perfect teaching opportunity. Students watched in fascination as Thunder employed his unique assessment techniques, showing remarkable sensitivity to the mare's psychological state. Dr. Miller provided medical context as Thunder's behavior revealed subtle signs of the mare's condition. The Mustang's ability to identify specific areas of physical discomfort helped guide the veterinary examination. His demonstrated diagnostic instincts offered valuable lessons in integrating behavioral observation with traditional medical assessment. Sarah Martinez led discussions on Thunder's methods of establishing trust with traumatized horses. The students documented his careful approach to the nervous mare, noting how he created safe spaces that allowed her to process her surroundings at her own pace. His techniques suggested new frameworks for understanding equine psychological recovery. The Education Center's state-of-the-art observation facilities allow detailed study of Thunder's interactions. High-resolution cameras captured nuances of his body language and communication methods. The recorded data would contribute to developing standardized protocols based on his natural wisdom. Mid-morning brought practical exercises as students attempted to implement Thunder's techniques under careful supervision. The Mustang's patience extended to these learning efforts, his presence helping to calm horses that might otherwise be disturbed by inexperienced handlers. His role as teacher seemed to come as naturally as his other responsibilities. Professor Harrison's analysis highlighted the sophisticated nature of Thunder's methods. His approach to horse rehabilitation incorporated elements of psychology, social dynamics, and environmental awareness. The students' attempts to understand and replicate his techniques revealed the complexity underlying his seemingly intuitive actions. The sanctuary's resident horses participated willingly in the training sessions, their own rehabilitation journeys providing valuable case studies. Thunder's influence had created an environment where healing and learning reinforced each other. Each horse's story offered unique insights into the effectiveness of his methods. Afternoon sessions explored Thunder's role in managing group dynamics. Students observed his techniques for introducing new horses to established herds, noting how he prevented conflict through careful space management and timing. His demonstrated understanding of social hierarchies and individual personalities informed new approaches to herd integration. Dr. Walsh arrived to share findings from her ongoing research into Thunder's cognitive capabilities. Her presentation included new data suggesting levels of abstract thinking previously undocumented in horses. The students' direct observations of his problem-solving abilities supported these revolutionary conclusions. The education program included practical application of Thunder's rehabilitation techniques. Under his watchful presence, students worked with selected horses from the sanctuary's rehabilitation program. His subtle interventions helped prevent mistakes while allowing valuable learning experiences. Evening brought specialized sessions focusing on Thunder's methods of emotional support for traumatized horses. The students witnessed his unique approach to helping animals process past trauma, noting how he created safe spaces for emotional release. His demonstrated empathy challenged conventional understanding of horse consciousness. Local ranchers attended evening demonstrations, eager to learn techniques they could apply in their own operations. Thunder's methods of maintaining calm and order among large groups of horses had practical applications beyond rehabilitation settings. His influence began extending into traditional horse management practices. The sanctuary's success stories provided powerful teaching materials for the training program. Students analyzed documented cases of horses that had recovered under Thunder's guidance, identifying key elements of his rehabilitation approach. Each example added to their understanding of his revolutionary methods. As night fell, the education center's lighting allowed continued observation of Thunder's evening routines. His systematic approach to ensuring the comfort and security of resident horses demonstrated practical application of the principles discussed during day sessions. Students noted how his methods integrated physical and emotional care. The training program's comprehensive documentation would contribute to developing formal certification standards for rehabilitation specialists. Thunder's demonstrated techniques formed the foundation for new approaches to horse care and recovery. His natural wisdom was being transformed into teachable protocols that could benefit horses worldwide. Midnight observations revealed new aspects of Thunder's capabilities as students witnessed his nighttime management methods. His ability to maintain order and provide comfort in darkness offered insights into horse sensory awareness and social bonds. The overnight sessions added valuable dimensions to their understanding of rehabilitation requirements. Dawn brought opportunities to observe Thunder's methods of starting each day. His systematic checking of resident horses showed remarkable attention to individual needs and conditions. Students learned to recognize subtle signs of health and emotional state through studying his assessment techniques. The Education Center's inaugural training program marked a significant step in formalizing Thunder's influence on horse rehabilitation practices. His natural wisdom was being translated into structured learning experiences that would shape future generations of horse care specialists. The sanctuary's role in advancing equine welfare expanded through sharing his revolutionary approach. Spring blossoms painted Pine Valley Ranch in vibrant colors as Emma stood at the observation point, watching Thunder guide a group of newly arrived rescue horses through their first morning at the sanctuary. The years had touched him gently, adding silver strands to his mane, but none of the weariness one might expect after so much service. His movements remained purposeful and graceful as he demonstrated once again the extraordinary wisdom that had transformed so many lives. The sanctuary had grown beyond anyone's initial dreams, its success built on the foundation of one desperate Mustang's plea for help. Now, as morning light filtered through the cherry blossoms, Thunder's legacy was visible in every corner of the expanded facility. The original barn stood as a testament to beginnings, while modern rehabilitation centers and education facilities stretched across the valley, each designed to carry forward the revolutionary methods he had inspired. Dr. Miller arrived for his regular rounds, his weathered face breaking into a smile as he watched Thunder work with the new arrivals. The Mustang's diagnostic instincts had proved invaluable countless times, leading to breakthroughs in understanding horse health and behavior. Today, as always, Thunder moved with careful attention among the rescued horses, his presence offering comfort while his observations guided medical assessments. The morning's activities included visits from international delegates studying the sanctuary's innovative programs. Thunder's influence had spread far beyond Montana's borders, inspiring changes in horse rehabilitation practices worldwide. As they toured the facilities, evidence of his methodologies appeared in every protocol and procedure, each refined through years of careful observation and documentation. Sarah Martinez coordinated with a film crew capturing footage for an educational series about horse rehabilitation. Thunder's story had become a cornerstone for teaching compassionate approaches to animal care. His journey from wild Mustang to respected healer continued to inspire new generations of caregivers and sanctuary operators around the globe. The sanctuary's resident horses demonstrated the lasting impact of Thunder's methods. Each had arrived with their own trauma and challenges, yet under his guidance, they had found paths to recovery. Now they participated in helping newcomers adjust, creating a sustainable cycle of healing that extended his influence through their examples. Mid-morning brought a special ceremony as local officials gathered to designate Pine Valley Ranch as a protected heritage site. Thunder's contribution to advancing understanding of horse consciousness and capabilities had earned recognition beyond the realm of animal welfare. His example had helped bridge gaps between scientific research and natural wisdom, creating new paradigms for studying animal intelligence. Professor Harrison presented findings from long-term studies of Thunder's methods, highlighting how his approach had revolutionized understanding of equine emotional capacity. The Mustang's demonstrated abilities had opened new frontiers in animal cognition research, challenging previously held limitations on horse intelligence and social awareness. The sanctuary's success stories filled volumes now, each documenting different aspects of Thunder's extraordinary impact. From traumatized rescues to injured wildlife, countless animals had found healing through his patient guidance. His methods once viewed as mysterious, had proven consistently effective across diverse cases and conditions. Afternoon light illuminated the newly completed memorial garden, where plaques honored horses that had passed through the sanctuary. Thunder paused there during his rounds, his quiet presence acknowledging the spirits of those he had helped along their final journeys. His capacity for empathy extended to providing comfort in life's most challenging moments. Dr. Walsh arrived with updates on new research initiatives inspired by Thunder's example. His influence had sparked ongoing studies into horse consciousness and emotional intelligence, leading to discoveries that continued to expand understanding of animal capabilities. The Mustang's legacy would live on through generations of scientific advancement. The sanctuary's therapeutic programs had evolved to serve diverse needs, all built on Thunder's foundational approach to healing. Children with special needs found confidence through carefully structured interactions, while veterans discovered peace working with rescued horses. His methods had created bridges of understanding between species, facilitating healing on multiple levels. Evening brought peaceful reflection as Thunder maintained his vigilant presence among the resident horses. His dedication remained unchanged by time or recognition, his focus always on the immediate needs of those in his care. The awards and accolades acknowledging his contribution meant nothing compared to the quiet moments of connection he shared, with troubled spirits seeking peace. The sunset painted the valley in golden light as Thunder guided the day's final activities. New arrivals settled into their spaces, comforted by his steady presence and the sanctuary's peaceful atmosphere. His methods had created an environment where healing happened naturally, guided by understanding and compassion rather than force. Night fell softly over Pine Valley Ranch, stars emerging above the sanctuary that one horse's courage had built. Thunder's legacy lived in every corner, from the sophisticated rehabilitation protocols to the simple daily routines that maintained peace among diverse residents. His journey from desperate plea to healing pioneer had transformed understanding of what was possible when compassion guided the way. Dawn would bring new challenges and opportunities, but Thunder's example would continue lighting the path forward. His story reminded all who witnessed it that sometimes the most profound wisdom comes from unexpected sources, and that healing begins with a single act of trust. The sanctuary stood as a living testament to the extraordinary potential that exists when humans learn to listen to the quiet wisdom of the natural world. Up next, discover more remarkable tales of animal courage and human compassion. Your screen holds 2 more extraordinary stories that will touch your heart and restore your faith in the healing power of unconditional love. Click now to continue your journey through these inspiring adventures that prove anything is possible when hope guides the way.